going to be looking at a few videos just to show you the state that Ireland is currently in and the direction that we are headed if we don't do something about it very quickly. So, first and foremost, let's listen to this young lady.
I'm currently sitting in my car and I'm waiting to get out. This has happened to me probably about 3 times in the last 2 weeks, where I've pulled up outside where I work, and there's a group of males lurking around, and I really don't feel like I want to get out of the car. And now, because it's my third time, I think they kind of maybe they know that they've seen me here before. So I feel like the stares are on me. I feel like, when somebody's staring at you, and I just really don't want to get out of the car. Like, obviously I don't speak their language, so I can hear them.
Okay, so that's the first thing I want to comment on, guys. I really don't like the idea of people speaking foreign languages in whatever country they're in. Now, obviously, if you're a tourist and you're just visiting, that's fine. Speak your language. You're on your little 2-week vacation. You're not expected to learn the language of every country you visit to. Or, yeah, you visit. But people who are living in the country for extended periods of time, especially if they're gathered in groups of men huddled around on the street and talking foreign languages, it really, I think, causes disunity in the society. When you have a society, in order for it to be harmonious and for people to get along, you need unifying factors, things that bind the people together. And a common spoken language is like the fundamental of that. We all speak language. But then there's other things. We all have similar morals. We all interact with each other a similar way. We all have a similar culture. We all have a similar religion. We all look a similar way. I mean, you don't necessarily need all these things, but these are just different ways in which you can unify a society and have people feel comfortable around each other and feel like they're kind of part of a big family almost. So let's listen to what the rest of what she has to say. Also, I think it's quite rude, guys. Like, I know people who will speak foreign languages, to amongst each other in front of you, and they're actually really nice people a lot of the time, the ones that I know. But it's just really rude and it's really kind of divisive, I think, for society because you don't understand what they're saying. You're kind of excluded from the conversation, and it makes it very evident that they're different to you. And ultimately, if we want to have a really cohesive society where everyone gets along, you want people to feel like they're part of the same team. And that just causes disunity. Now, that's not a hill that I'm going to absolutely die on, but I just want to make that comment when she's speaking here.
All speaking at each other, no idea what they're saying. It could be normal, how are you kind of stuff as well, but it's very, very intimidating. They're not really dressed great. Like, they're dressed kind of hoods up and stuff like that, a little bit kind of intimidating. So I just don't really feel comfortable getting out of the car, and they don't look like they're up to any good, to be honest. And I'm not judging. I'm not judging at all, but they're very, very loud. I don't know if you can hear them here in the background, but they're quite loud, and just, yeah, I'm not getting out of the car, and I'm going to be late for work now again by about 10 minutes. But
you can also tell, in my opinion anyways, that this is not just some horrible, hateful person that just wants to spew hate out into the world. This is genuinely a woman who is concerned for her safety, and her life has become less comfortable because of this situation. She doesn't feel safe to leave her car to go to work, and it's broad daylight. I mean, it's not in the middle of the night even, and this is in Ireland.
Because I am not walking over to my workplace. First of all, I don't feel comfortable with them even seeing where my workplace is, but this is just not okay. It's not okay. And I think I am a very easygoing person. I'm very open-minded, but can they just not lurk around the streets? Please, can they not lurk around the streets? And even if they are absolutely fine and they're not up to any good, you can't do that. You can't intimidate people like that by staring at them and looking at them like that. And I'm actually very glad that I'm recording this right now, because they're getting closer and closer to my car. So maybe, hopefully, they were to come up to my car and say anything, at least I have it on camera. But I'm I'm just going to go now, make a run for it now in a minute. And you know what the worst part is? The homecoming was on last night for Tipperary, so there's not many people actually around the streets. The streets are
So she's in Tipperary as well, which Tipperary is quite a small, irrelevant county. No offense to Tipperary people. But this just highlights a massive problem that's emerged rapidly in Ireland. Now, this is something that's been building throughout Europe for a long time. Sweden was the country that was hit with it first and hit the hardest. I have this page open here. List of grenade attacks in Sweden. So Sweden literally has a Wikipedia page now dedicated to grenade attacks alone. And if you look through this, you can see 2018, there were a few 2017, 2016, and these are a lot of grenade attacks. 2015. So Sweden just had like this massive increase in all forms of crime. You know, grenade attacks, evidently, rapes, like murders, stabbings, and in particular areas. It's not all throughout Sweden. It tends to be concentrated in different areas, but it is a real problem. It's happening all across Europe. It's happening in the UK. It's happening in Germany, and now Ireland almost, which is a country that kind of was doing pretty okay with immigration. I always felt, from my personal experience, you know, now we're just speed running this suicide mission that the rest of Europe has been on for quite a while. And this woman is completely in the right and giving a reasonable response, in my opinion. When you have groups of men huddled together from that you're unfamiliar with, humans throughout history, generally speaking, we knew the people around us, and if we didn't know them directly, you know, we knew they were part of our tribe because they had the same culture, they looked the same, they spoke the same, you know, so we didn't feel threatened by them. But when you have foreign people, people who have a culture that you're unfamiliar with, they're speaking a language you're unfamiliar with, you don't know what their moral code is, you don't know how they think it's appropriate to act, you don't know any of these things, you don't know anything about these people. And what we're seeing now is unfettered, unvetted migration into this country. We don't know who these people are. They're coming a lot of times from corrupt countries, from underdeveloped countries, countries that don't have good criminal systems, don't have good criminal records. In countries like the UK, you know, they'll throw away their passport or whatever and things like this. So you have no idea who you're dealing with. You could be dealing with the nicest person in the world, or you could be dealing with someone who's going to pull out a knife on you and stab you, like we saw with Ashling Murphy. That was a big case here in Ireland, which got a lot of media attention. But this is becoming a more prominent problem. And generally speaking, groups of men should not be hanging around loitering in this kind of manner. You know, and if you are going to do that, then you should have a long established record in that country of being sound people that do not cause issues. This woman's dealing with people, she doesn't has no clue who they are, you know, she doesn't know what to expect, and it's a completely natural instinct to be fearful in that situation. And even if you're a man, you know, even if you're a man, you may think, yeah, well, I'm a big tough guy, whatever. If someone pulls out a knife on you, there's nothing you can do. There's five guys there. So you just don't know what you're dealing with because you don't know who these people are. And also, the other thing is, when you're dealing with people who have a stake in the country, you know, they've spent the time to get a good job, maybe get a degree, get good education. They have a mortgage, they have a family, they have kids, or even they just have a job, they have friends, things like this. They're a part of the community, they're a part of the society. These are people that you know have something to lose. You know, they're not just going to fly off the handle and do something crazy. When you got people who have really nothing to lose, they're coming from war torn areas, they're coming from completely different cultures, um, and they're probably seeing themselves as, you know, a lower class in society. So that's going to lead to a certain level of resentment in a lot of people looking at all these native people who have houses and cars and it all looks great. So it's just a recipe for disaster. And we're seeing that borne out in the statistics and just in the general state of Ireland and a lot of European countries. I'll show you another video here. Here we have now. So here she says you punch her in the face. But we didn't see that on video, so we can't necessarily say that's a fact. However, the way that he's aggressively grabbing her in broad daylight in front of multiple people, an Irish person, it's just unthinkable that they would do that. We would not do that. And these Irish men, and if you did, the Irish men would jump in immediately to stop you. That's not tolerated. It's not tolerated to be grabbing women in public. It's not tolerated at all. But you can get away with behind closed doors, maybe to a certain extent. Some people can. But if you're in broad daylight and people are watching you, and you're still getting away with it, like, and you still think that you can do it, like you don't care that people see, it's just absolute madness. He's grabbing her aggressively, and then look at these guys around here. Like these guys are just absolute betas. I know that word is, it's kind of a goofy word, but unironically, they're fucking betas. Like, I mean, they should be jumping in and stopping this immediately. But here's the other thing, you know, with the kind of feminist movement and women kind of their attitude, a lot of times men nowadays they don't necessarily want to help women as much because they feel like they're constantly told women are independent, women can do this, women are just as strong and just as capable as a man, and they don't really get any reward for being chivalrous or helping. So they're like, why risk my life and then possibly it'll just even backfire on me and I'll end up dead. The other thing as well is, in defense of these men, you don't know who you're dealing with here. Again, this guy, he's already brazen enough to just be grabbing women aggressively and allegedly punching her in broad daylight. You don't know if he's going to pull out a knife. You don't know what he's going to do, what he might do, knock you out and then stomp your head and kill you. Like when you're dealing with people that you're familiar with, you kind of have a certain level of understanding the way they act, you know, what's going to set them off, the bounds of which you can interact with them without it leading to aggression, leading to violence. But when you're dealing with people that you're just completely unfamiliar with, these people, for all you know, they could be war criminals back in their home country and there's no documentation of it. They could be murderers. They could be rapists. That could be the reason why they're fleeing the country they're from. Um, they could have all manners of different views on how you can treat women or how you can treat other people or other religions. You don't know. When that's what you're getting with this unvetted immigration. You know, these people are not being vetted properly, and we're just getting lunatics let into the country. And then in this video, so this is Ballina Mayo. The locals thought that this was an iPass center, which the iPass centers are used for housing, a lot of migrants in one go. So these are like migrants. These aren't immigrants. If you're an immigrant and you go through a process where where you're coming from a country where they can check your criminal record, they can check your work history, things like that, and you're paying a certain amount to get into the country, which shows you know how to complete brokey. You actually have something going for you in life. That's one thing. But when you're just bringing in people en masse and putting them in centers, and there's no vetting. They're coming from countries where you don't know if they're criminals or not. I mean, it's just a recipe for disaster. And here, the locals, they thought that that's what that was going to be. Um, Probably was, to be honest. It's a very common thing that happens in this country now. Ballina as a tiny town, and this happens all the time in Ireland now, where you'll have small little towns, towns where, picture this, you live there, you know everyone that lives there. You know their name, you know a bit about their life. You walk down the street, oh hey, there's Mary, there's Susan, there's whoever, there's Mike. Hey Mike. Everyone knows each other, you know, everyone's friendly, they all get along. You can leave your bikes unlocked, there's just no chance that there's gonna be any like theft or crime or attacks because it's just this like small knit community. And it's happened in Ireland where these areas, in one clean sweep, those people become a minority in their own little village. And there's all these refugees, these migrants, or whatever they're classified as, brought in. And imagine one day you're walking down the street and you're familiar with everyone that you meet, Mary, Susan, etc. And then from one minute to the next, you're walking on the street and there's men there, and a lot of times it is military age men. Like that's the other thing. How are you a refugee if you're a military age capable combat capable man? You should be in your country fighting. But you have all these men roaming your streets from one second to the next. They're speaking a language you don't understand. They're dressed in ways that are different to you. They have a different culture to you. Maybe they have a different religion to you. You don't know their background. You don't know anything about them, and you're just supposed to accept it. And then, on top of this, it's not just paranoia. We see this borne out in the increase in crime across the board, across all the Western countries that are adopting this mad um, agenda. And I mean, it's really difficult to understand. Here's the thing I want to say as well is Europe, I really feel, is at a boiling point. It's a pressure cooker and it's about to explode. These problems have been building up in Europe for a long time. However, if you have a good job or a decent job or a job that requires a college degree, you have a wife, you have a house, you have a mortgage, you have a family, you have all these things, then speaking out about these issues, that puts that all in jeopardy. On top of that, you're so busy with your day-to-day life that maybe you're not paying too much attention to these things. On top of that, for years we've had serious levels of censorship on any of these issues, so we've not been able to see it. So the combination of now we're at a point where we have this generation coming up in Ireland and in a lot of Western countries who really have nothing to lose and who really see no hope for the future. You know, they got nothing to lose. They're never going to be able to afford to buy a house. They can't get good jobs. You know, the gender dynamics are completely fucked up. Uh, just everything that they love about their society is being destroyed. And they just don't see any future. They don't see any hope. And with the economy getting as bad as it is, coupled with now we have this influx of this free speech, we're seeing what's going on. It is a powder keg, and it is gonna explode soon. And we're seeing it across Ireland. People are not tolerating this anymore. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, why should they? Why should your quality of life become worse? Why should you feel more in danger in your own country? Why should a village go from being people that you know, locals, people you grew up with, people whose kids your kids play with, you know, people who've been there for generations, to suddenly strangers speaking weird languages and you don't know what they're saying, huddling up in groups? I mean, it's just absolutely madness. It's absolutely madness.